Hello, guys and gals, and welcome! Welcome. So we just got done with the campfire chat for Season 6, basically, or the PTR for 2.0. We might as well just cross out this Diablo 4 and write Diablo 5 here, because the number of changes that are coming is rather intense and rather long. Let me just say, before we get started, that the patch notes video and the campfire going over all of the stuff was about 6.5 hours, basically going over everything, the campfire chat, the new patch notes, the whole thing. I'm going to endeavor to create some brevity here. I'm not very good at it, but I will try my best. I did take notes, and if I do leave something out, well, maybe you should go take a look at the full version, because to be honest with you, it doesn't matter who you're watching, whether it's me, Wudijo, Rax, freaking Riker, they're all going to leave something out because there's a lot of stuff coming in patch 2.0. So let's start with my notes. I took some pretty long notes here, and we're gonna go over this stuff as quickly as I can. All items with item power above 540 are going to be reduced down to 540. This is part of the stat squish that they're doing, and the new item power max is going to be 750. With the max item power for ancestral items being 800. So essentially the max item power that is currently 925 is going to be brought down to 800 for ancestral items and 750 for all other items. Sacred items are now going to be removed from the game completely, and they will no longer exist. If you are in the Eternal Realm, I feel for you. A single tear has rolled down from my eye, because honestly they've bricked your Eternal Realm characters again, and there's really there's no sugarcoating it. Ancestral items are now going to be the top end items, and they're also going to roll with one guaranteed greater affix. On top of that, ancestral items will only be the only items in the game that have greater affixes on them. So that is it. On top of this, we also have legendary aspects, which are going to be added for legendary items, which is going to be 5 ranks higher than the legendary aspects that we currently have. So they're going to be adding these like ancestral, legendary, ultra aspects, basically, that are going to be even more powerful than the ones that we currently have in the game. 5 ranks more powerful, to be exact. Paragon updates. So the Paragon update system is going to be up to Paragon 300 at this point. And I kind of seem to have like switched out some of this stuff. So let's skip the Paragon updates right now for the Glyph updates, and we'll talk about that in a second. So the Glyphs have been changed from a maximum rank of 21 to a maximum rank of 100. They still increase in size at 15, but they also increase in size a second time at rank 46 by turning them into a legendary Glyph, which allows them to get another increase in size, which is actually really cool to see, because the second increase in size goes much further than the first one, and we actually saw this one time before with the, I can't remember the name of the glyph right off the top of my head. It was like the blood something. That one was able to get this size as well. So the new level 46 glyphs are going to be much larger in size, which is definitely going to make them a lot more powerful. On top of this, we also have the Glyph EXP is being moved to the pit from the Nightmare Dungeons, so Nightmare Dungeons are no longer going to have Glyph EXP, and instead of it being a flat amount, like, you need 100 EXP to get to the next rank, it's going to be chances to upgrade ranks instead, and there's going to be up to 4 chances to upgrade ranks. One of them is only if you don't die. So it's very similar, and honestly, almost identical to the Diablo 3 gem upgrading system, just transferred into the Glyph upgrading system. If you're 10 ranks higher, it will be a guaranteed success. And on top of that, if you are much higher than 10 ranks, you also get bonus ranks that are granted. Instead of it just going up 1 rank, it can go up like 3 or 4 ranks, which is literally identical to D3 gems. The Paragon points in the game are going to be shared across all characters now. So if you are level 60, you do have to be level 60, but just like in Diablo 3, back in, like when the Paragon points were first introduced, and your level 1 character could have like a million Paragon points because it was shared across your characters. Well, instead of it being level 1, it's level 60, and level 60 is now the level cap. So you cannot be higher than level 60 because the level cap doesn't go any higher. Also, the Paragon points have been increased to 300. Now, in the actual notes, they said that the Paragon points were increased from 200 to 300, but we have 225, which makes me think that instead of it being 300, it's most likely 325 Paragon points, in addition to the Lilith statues and the other bonuses that we currently have. So it's more than just simply 300, and it's going to be massive. They're also tuning the boards, so the maximum number of active boards that can be active at any time is going to be changed to 5, and this also includes the starter board. So you can only have a maximum of 4 legendary Paragon nodes active on any individual character because of the fact that you can only have 5 total boards, and one of them includes your starter board. They basically got tired of people activating like 8 or 9 glyphs at the same time, apparently, is what's going on. So they're trying to force people to spend more on the boards that they do have instead of going to more boards. And boy, are you going to have more points. I did a quick test just to see, and I took an active build that was currently working. I removed all of the boards so that I would be down to 5 boards, and I was sitting at something like, I think it was like 191 Paragon points spent out of like 225. And then you increase that to 325, obviously, and you subtract 191 from the total, and you end up with, what is that, 325 minus 191. You end up with a 134 additional Paragon points to spend inside of the 5 boards that you already had maxed out. And you're basically going to be maxing out just about everything on the 5 boards now, because you don't really have the option of going to other boards. And on top of that, the other thing is that, well, you're going to be much more picky about which boards you include in your build. Instead of choosing boards that might not necessarily be beneficial to you, you're going to choose boards that are more beneficial to you in general. Progression changes. Like I said, the new level cap is level 60, and you're also going to be getting 10 more skill points. So we're going to be getting more options, and more builds are going to become viable because we're going to have more points to spend inside the trees. New difficulty tiers and something called Pit Arbitration. Pit Arbitration is basically where everything in the game is sort of like gauged around a pit tier. And the pit tiers have been nerfed down from 200 to 100, by the way. So good luck trying to figure out exactly what's going on. They did, however, give us this handy-dandy graphic to understand the association of pit tiers to the actual like difficulty levels. So, for instance, normal is essentially like a pit tier 1. Penitent, which is a pit tier 15, and torment 4, which is like a pit tier 65, and so forth and so on. They also explain to us how these difficulty tiers unlock. Normal and hard difficulty are going to be unlocked by default. Expert gets unlocked by completing the campaign. Penitent gets unlocked by hitting level 50, and Torment 1, 2, 3, and 4 are unlocked later as you hit level 60 and whatnot. There's different ways that you could potentially get access to those. But for the most part, it seems like the first one is probably a dead one, because in general, when it comes to those little low-level ones, the low-level ones don't really matter all that much in terms of, like, anybody, because most people are just going to be passing right by those tiers with absolutely no issue. They did say that there was going to be 5 pit tiers per standard. So basically, normal difficulty is like 1 to 5. Hard difficulty is like 6 to 10. Expert difficulty is like 11 to 15. Penitent difficulty is basically like 16 to 20. And so forth and so on, or, I might be a little bit off on those numbers, but it's pretty close. There's apparently going to be 15 pit tiers per torment. So torment 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., however many torment tiers they come up with. Hopefully it's not like Diablo 3 where they have like 20 freaking torment tiers, because that crap was stupid. Difficulty tiers derive their damage and intensity from the associated pit tier. So basically, you're going to know exactly like what pit tier you're capable of, and also the pit tiers are going to unlock specific tiers. So pit unlocks at level 60, tiers 1 through 20, and when you complete a level 20 pit, you're going to get access to the appropriate difficulty tier, which would be Torment 1. So Torment 1 is the level 20, and as soon as you complete level 20 of the pit, you get access to Torment 1. As soon as you complete Torment 35, or Pit 35, you get access to Torment 2, and 50 is Torment 3, and 65 is Torment 4, and so forth and so on. So you're going to have to complete it at least one time to get access to that area. Now, I am a little bit worried about the divisiveness between the tiers, because before we really only had one tier. And yes, I know there were 3 other tiers, but those 3 other tiers didn't matter. For the most part, nobody played in World Tier 1. World Tier 2 was basically just where you started. World Tier 3 was skipped over as fast as humanly possible, like with the speed of running over a bald man's head and leaving like a shoe print on there. And World Tier 4 is where everybody played. So there was really no like divisiveness, like the in between the tiers. Everybody played in the same tier. And yes, there was some, like division when you looked at it like this. And this is a graphic that they made, by the way, not me. This is not my handiwork. And they kind of said that, it was like separating out into various tiers. Well, at least everybody was in the same difficulty. And so we were all playing together. But my worry is that with the way that they have the new system set up, everybody is not going to be playing together because we're all going to be split up into separate torments, and we're definitely going to have to figure that out as we go. Now, one of the good things is they said that there's basically going to be like a smart key system for non-pit activities keyed to your current progression. So, for instance, let's say, you set your pit tier to pit torment 3, right? So now you're in difficulty torment 3, which is about a pit 50. When you go into the HellTide, instead of the HellTide being a weak, pathetic adventure that you can one-shot everything, the HellTide is now going to be essentially equivalent to the pit tier that you were capable of completing, which means that all content in the game, including Legion events, HellTides, regular like walking around the world bosses, and so forth and so on, are going to essentially match the difficulty that you're currently capable of, which is actually really good, in my opinion. Conquering a pit tier unlocks all torment tiers for all activities. So basically, once you conquer that pit tier, you can now perform any activity at that tier. Hard, Expert, and Penitent offer significantly increased challenge for significantly increased reward, and they've said this multiple times. So increasing the challenge will increase the reward, EXP, gold, gold that's dropping, materials, and so forth and so on. They did make a comment about profane mind cages being basically permanent now and available all over the place, but and not only usable in the HellTide, but they said they were going to be usable in other places, unless I misheard them. But hopefully I didn't, because that's a really good change. They said player health and damage and armor have been adjusted to be more readable, smaller numbers, and I don't necessarily know if they just simply mean lower numbers, like they're scaling everything down like a stat squish specifically, and saying like instead of doing 100 million damage, you're doing like 100,000 damage or like 10,000 damage. But effectively, it works out to be the same amount because the monster's HP was reduced in like the same regard. So like for instance, if you had a monster that had 1 million HP and you did 1 million damage to one-shot them, then in the new version you would be doing like 1,000 damage and they would also have 1,000 HP and you would still one-shot them. So it's effectively the same thing. I was also curious if what they meant also was that they were going to be like truncating the numbers so they're easier to see. Like in Diablo 3, they started representing like the millions and billions and trillions with like a 7T or like a 3B, which made them easier to see on the screen, as opposed to trying to read the small numbers and trying to count how many, decimal places over it is to figure out whether or not you were in the billions or millions. You get what I mean. Streamlined monsters, health and damage across all content difficulties. So basically all the difficulties are going to be like as they are supposed to be. So like a Torment 1, all the monsters are going to be Torment 1 in that difficulty. Monster level will always match the player level. So this was a kind of an odd one that I saw in here, which was strange. They basically said that the monsters won't even have a level anymore. So when you look at the monster, you won't even see a level. Because the monster is always going to be the same level as you, which is, I mean, it's interesting. Their damage and their HP and everything is still going to scale based on the difficulty, but there's no level associated with the monster anymore, and they're essentially the same level as you whenever you see them. Reducing instances of getting one-shots, that was definitely very nice to hear. They talked about trying to reduce the number of one-shots all across the board. They adjusted boss HP, although they didn't really say what they did specifically. Class changes in 2.0, they did a lot of tempering changes by moving a lot of the damage to like the duration increases and the size increases to the utility section, and keeping most of the, if not all of the changes for the new weapons affixes to, or the tempering recipes, to things like multiplicative damages, like double damage or chance to attack twice, or like flay bleed duration increase, and so forth and so on. So basically, the majority of the weapon tempers are all things that you would actually really, really want as a multiplicative damage, which I have right there. And they added a lot of new chances to deal double damage as well as new chances to attack twice. So a lot of build opportunities are opening up through the creation of these, and I could briefly go over them, but we'll look at that later as we're scrolling through the patch notes. Already at 15 minutes. I'm trying to keep it quick. Uh, offensive damage are always going to be additive, so the offensive tempering aspects are going to be additive. Size and duration, they used to move to the utility category. Tempering recipes limited to 4 affixes at most, and in most cases I saw it was 3. So what they're trying to do here is, a lot of people complain that if you have one tempering recipe that has like 5 or 6 or 7 aspects in it, that it was really hard to get the one that you wanted. So they kind of split them all up and they rearranged them a little bit so that they're more like 3 to 4 max, which is definitely going to be a lot better for trying to hit that one that you're looking for. All ultimate skills can now have ranks, and the ranks will increase the damage and decrease the cooldown, which is really nice. You can also get skill bonuses to those ranks, but only if you actually have a point in the skill. You can't get free ultimate skills. Bonus skill ranks, like I said, apply to the ultimates only if you have the ultimate, but not if you don't. Barbarian, they added a new Mighty Throw ability. It looks absolutely amazing. The Mighty Throw ability is a new, basically like a core skill, and it looks like a really fun one. They also added a Barb Carapace, which is really sweet for Barbarian. The Barbarian like Thorns builds, and you know what I can do? I can pull up some graphics here. So this is the Mighty Throw graphic. This is the one they showed in the thing. This is the Mighty Throw skill, and these are the enhancements for the skill. Basically revolving around throwing a weapon, and then it pulses in the ground and does damage. It's kind of neat. They also added a bunch of new aspects and passives and stuff, like the Force of Nature, which is Earthquakes and Dust Devils mixed together. The Barb Carapace is really nice for a Thorns build. If you're doing a Thorns Barb build, I highly recommend you take a look at Barb Carapace because it looks insane. And then they also added some other ones here, like this Belligerence one, which gives nice damage for basic skills and anything that, obviously accompanies basic skills. And also this really sweet one for weapon mastery that fortifies you for ridiculous amounts of fortification. They also added a new Barbarian unique, the Ugly Bastard Helm, which causes fire damage, which is pretty cool. And the fire damage that it does just kind of stacks with other kinds of fire damage. It converts all your damage into fire damage. The Druid got the Stoneburst ability, which is a channeling skill, and it also kind of functions not like a channeling skill too. You basically can spam it if you want to, or you can hold it down and deal more damage. It basically just kind of like builds stones on a target, and then they kind of shoot out, and they do damage in like a radius. And the longer you hold it down, the bigger the radius is, and the more damage it does. It's kind of interesting. They also added some new Druid passives. The Druid passives that they added are things like the Untamed, which is really nice for companions. It gives companion ranks. And also the new key passive for the companion builds, which gives you +1 to your additional companions, and also gives you some pretty sick bonuses as well on top of that. So additional damage and the ability to cast the passives of those ranks, whether you have them on your bill or not. They said that even if you don't have Ravens, Wolves, or Poison Creeper on your bar, and you're using this passives, you will still get all the passive effects of all 3 of the companion skills. They also added some other interesting passives, which are definitely going to be nice for the Druid. They added a new unique item specifically for that Stone Burst ability, which does have some pretty interesting abilities to like cast the Stone Burst and like get damage reduction, and then the explosion is more damage and it kind of hits from further, so it's kind of a neat. The other one they added that was really cool was the Grizzly Rage spreads rabies. The Stormcrow aspect that turns the ravens into lightning, which really, really looks cool. I'm actually kind of excited about that one. The Necromancer got a new ultimate called the Soul Rift, and the Soul Rift is a darkness skill basically. So it's the first darkness skill ultimate that the Necromancers really had access to, as long as you're not counting the Bone Storm being converted into a darkness skill with that one aspect, which always kind of sucked because it consumed one of your aspect slots. So I don't know. This one involves stealing people's souls and gaining bonuses for stealing their souls. And even though their souls are stolen, they still move around, just like me, because I'm a ginger. They also added some new passives and legendary nodes. So we've got this one called Affliction, which basically turns your curses into damage abilities, which is kind of cool. So your curse literally becomes a damage skill, and you can curse people to death, which is kind of neat. Frailty also is based around curses, as you can see. So cursed enemies take 10% increased damage from you and your minions. And then they also added the this really nice Necrotic Fortitude, which is your damage has up to a 5% chance to give you a barrier for 5% of your maximum life. That one looks really good. And Necromancer's got a much needed lucky hit bonus. I know you can't see it because I'm currently in the way, but right here, a 5%, which is 15% total lucky hit bonus. So now Necromancers actually have a lucky hit bonus, kind of like a lot of the other classes do. The Rogue got a Dance of Knives ability, which is a channeled ability, and it's kind of like Whirlwind. Like it kind of reminds me of that D3 skill that the Demon Hunter had, where it was like he would spin around in circles and like throw knives or whatever, or shoot or something. Similar, but not quite the same. Then on top of that, we also got this really neat alchemical admixture, which is a new key passive that essentially works really well with the like multiple imbuements that this character has access to. So the more imbuements that you have, this ability just kind of scales based on those imbuements, giving you large amounts of damage, which is really nice. This one's going to be really interesting if you're doing like the full imbuement Monty. Also, casting mobility or subterfuge skills give you damage on your next skill. There was also another one in here that was kind of neat, like dodging attack gives you 2% damage reduction, gain damage for evading. And then there's also the new unique item, which is Pit Fighter's Gull. Pit Fighter's Gull is the ring that's specifically based around the smoke grenade, increases your critical strike damage for 6 seconds, leaving behind a cloud of shadows that it makes you stealthed. And it basically gives you an ability to kind of stealth up every single time, like once per second, every single time you're inside of that shroud. And there's a lot of ways that you can potentially enhance your stealth, your damage via stealth. There's actually a new mythic, and we're going to go over those in a minute too, that gives you damage bonus while you're stealth. And there's some pretty cool ones here. This one over here, the aspect of the splintering shards, seems kind of neat for the frozen builds. There's a lot of like interesting ways you can use like Icy Alchemist, Frostburns, stuff like that with Pen Shot. It actually works out really nice. It's lucky hit up to 100% chance when hitting or killing a frozen enemy to create ice splinters that fires away from them, dealing 295 cold damage and chilling them for 30%, which seems pretty nice. Then we got the Sorceress. The Sorceress got a familiar skill, which they showed off a little bit of footage in the video. And the familiar skill basically gives you these like tri-elemental familiars. Like one is fire, one is lightning, one is ice, and they have different effects. They like explode and do like burning, chill, or stuns to the enemy. And you can have up to 6 of them active at a time. It's kind of interesting. They also introduced a new key passive called Enlightenment, which basically lets you stack tons of damage for having multiple elements. So the more elements you have, the more damage you get. In fact, this last line that says, where is it? Enlightenment cast. After 100 stacks, you become enlightened. While enlightened, you gain 25% increased damage, 45% mana regeneration, and 20% increased attack speed. And there was also another line here. It says, or grant 3. It's not written here. But it was written in the patch notes. It said basically that it took the multiplier or the additive bonus for your fire, cold, and your lightning, and it added it all up into a massive bonus, and applied all of them together. Which let me take a look real quick because I'm pretty sure that was in there. I don't want to misinform you, but enlightenment. Yes, here it is right here. So while enlightenment while enlightened, your bonus damage with fire, lightning, and cold are equal to them combined, and you gain. So you basically get a combination of all of your bonuses added up. So let's say you had like 500% fire, 500% lightning, and 500% cold. Now you got 1500%. So not exactly terrible. They also added some other interesting ones where you could get additional damage for multiple damage types, which is already like a whole thing. And over here you can see elemental synergies. Your frost, shock, pyromancy damage is increased by 1% for each skill you have equipped to that type. So they're really leaning into like that particular side of things, which is having multiple damage types. They also added some new unique item gloves for the familiars, which lets you cast a lot of them at once, gives you bonuses to the familiars, increases their explosion size. That's actually kind of interesting for like the familiar build, but unfortunately the like Flame Weaver, Fireball Sorceresses, you guys just aren't going to be able to use them because they're going to take up your slots. They also added an aspect of overheating for Incinerate, which is kind of weird. It does like damage if you're after you channel for a certain number of seconds. It starts dishing out more damage to the targets, I guess. They also had this really weird one in here, which I'm not really sure about. It's aspect of the elemental constellation. Casting a pyromancy, shock, or frost skill conjures a matching elemental dagger around you that pierces through enemies, dealing 440 damage after 3 seconds. The damage is increased by 100% per matching elemental skill you cast. So another one that kind of like goes along with the whole casting multiple elements thing. The new mythic uniques. Let's go look at those real quick, too. So these are the new mythic uniques. The Shroud of False Death, which has +1 to all passives on it. Yes, you're reading that correctly. +1 to all passives. That's actually kind of insane. So if you are looking at this and you're thinking yourself, wow, that seems OP, you'd be right. Yeah, that's pretty dang OP in my opinion. Like +1 to all passives on certain characters could be probably one of the most broken things I've ever heard of, because it's just going to give you access to essentially every single passive in the game. And some characters can scale on every single passive. Some characters can't, but some characters can. And it's going to be crazy. It also gives 111 to all stats, 222 to maximum life, 333% damage on the next attack after entering stealth, 16.6% resource regeneration, and it also has a special effect of if you haven't attacked in the last 2 seconds, gain stealth and 40% movement speed. So the entire idea of this is to get yourself into stealth and then deal extra damage after you're in stealth, and then also the massive amount of passive bonuses that it gives you. Passive bonuses can be tons of things, like resistances, damage reduction, health, damage reduction from elites, bonuses to like energy regeneration, all sorts of crazy things, attack speed. It is not, and I repeat, not to understate that this is kind of crazy. The special flavor text on this says, Uriel alone saw past Lucion's guise. With Al Maish aloft, she smote the vile prince, hatred's seed, feigned death, and waited, loathed to enter the abyss again, the great conflict, tome 1. The other mythic unique item, which is the Heir of Perdition, is Ancestral Mythic Helmet. It has 200% damage to angels and demons. Yes, you heard me correctly. Angels. Apparently, we're going to be fighting angels at some point. Let that sink in for a second while I take a sip. The other stats on this are 20% critical strike chance, 20% lucky hit chance, 20% movement speed, and +3 to all core skills. It also has a very interesting effect, which is give in to the hatred and earn Lilith's favor, increasing your damage dealt by 60% times. Slaughter enemies to briefly steal Lilith's favor from nearby allies. And what they explain this as is that if, say for instance, you had 4 people all wearing this helmet in a group, and you were fighting next to your friends, and you steal the Lilith favor from them. That means that for the duration, they have 0% multiplier, and you have their multiplier, which means that if you steal 1, you can have 120, and if you steal all 4, you could be as high as 240 times multiplier for the duration of stealing the favor from your allies, which could make a really fun game of steal the Lilith favor from your friends to see how big of a damage number you can get, which is a pretty fun game. The flavor text on this says, Beware false prophets donned as sheep, yet bearing the stench of wolves. Thou shalt know them by their fruits, for a tree good cannot produce evil, nor thorns yield a harvest sweet and fair. Another really big thing is they introduced Runewords into the game. So Runewords have been introduced, and they are very interesting, in my opinion. Are they exactly like Diablo 2 Runewords? No. Do they have some similarities to Diablo 2 Runewords? Yes. One of the main similarities that they share is the ability to use skills from other classes. Yes, you can use skills from other classes. So they have clarified some things for us. So number one, Runewords can only be used once. So if you have a rune used at any point, you cannot use it again. You are also limited to 2 Runewords at a time, and they are 2-socket Runewords that go into specific pieces of equipment. Your helmet, which is going to be updated to 2 sockets. Your armor, your pants, and a 2-handed weapon are the main sources for your Runewords. You can only use 2 Runewords at a time, though, so you have basically 3 or 4 options of places to put these. There are 2 different kinds of runes. The 2 different kinds of runes are the Ritual Rune and the Invocation Rune. The Ritual Rune is how you gain resource. The Invocation Rune is the thing that you get. And the thing that you get can be really cool. We've seen some really nice ones so far. And basically, there's tons of different ones. We can go over those in a little bit, and I'll briefly go over as many as I can, but there's a lot. The Runeword rules are right here. Runes can be socketed into items with 2 sockets and can only be paired with a rune of the opposite type. So you always have to use an Invocation Rune with a Ritual Rune, and they have to be put together. You can only have a maximum of 2 Runewords equipped. You cannot equip the same rune twice. Runes are available for users who own the Vessel of Hatred. Runes stack and will be stored in a new socketable inventory tab, so you can actually have them separated. So gems and runes will be in their own tab now. And runes are tradable, and they're also craftable too. You can take 3 runes of the same type, and you can craft them into another rune, just like you can in Diablo 2. And here's an example of some of the runes. So this one here allows you to teleport if you meet the conditions. This one here allows you to use the Spirit Points Vortex. This one here allows you to get Horrid Decrepify. This one here allows you to get the Enhanced Warcry from Barbarian. And they did confirm that this also means that your character becomes Berserk. Berserk Sorceress, anybody? This one here is the Rogue's Countering Concealment. And then this one here is the Druid's Petrify skill, which is an ultimate. And they have confirmed that if you can cast the ability, you're going to get the opposite effect. And we're going to go over a lot of these in just a second. They also talked about the Runeword crafting. So using 3 of the same runes, you can use them to roll a new rune. The crafted Runewords is guaranteed to be different than the runes used. When the magic and rare runes are used, there is a chance to roll a rune of the next highest rarity. There are magic, rare, and legendary runes. Mythic unique crafting. You can also craft some mythic uniques with these, but you need 10 of the same rune of all 3 types. So you need 10 magic, 10 rare, and 10 legendary, plus 1 resplendent spark, and you can make yourself any mythic unique with that method. So a new way to craft yourself mythics. This, in addition to the mythic unique crafting, is interesting. Moving on. We're going to go take a look at the runes real quick, because I do think that's important. So let's go take a look at all of the runes. So first off, we have the ritual runes, which are the ones that generate you resource. So one of them will generate it when you cast a cooldown. You've got another one when you cast non-channeled skills 3 times in a row. There's also lucky hit against injured enemies. Not deal damage after not taking any within 5 seconds. Casting a non-channeled core skill, evoking a power from another class, which is obviously going to lead into the next set, which actually evokes skills from other classes. Casting ultimate skills, becoming injured or crowd control, deflecting crowd control. You can see that there's a lot of ways that you can potentially trigger these and basically get the offering that you need. And every single offering generation here has obviously different pros and cons depending on which character you're going to put them on. Then we have the invocation runes. The invocation runes are what you are trying to trigger. So, for instance, you can evoke Barbarian's Challenging Shout, reducing your damage taken, and taunting monsters. You can evoke Warcry, giving yourself berserk and movement speed. You can get +3 to all skills with the Vex rune. That's right, we got Ohm rune, we got Vex rune. We also have 2.5% critical strike chance up to 25. Your next skill cast will be a guaranteed critical strike and overpower. That one's going to be popular. Evoke Druid's Earthen Bulwark, granting yourself a barrier, so free Earthen Bulwark for all characters within the game. Evoke Druid's Petrify and increasing your critical strike damage against them. That is the ultimate from the Druid. Reducing your active cooldowns by 0.25 seconds. Now they've also talked about a overflow mechanic, which is the ability only requires 100 offering. So if you were to have 200 offering when it triggered, you would get an overflow of more reduced cooldowns than you had before. And a lot of these have an overflow mechanic, either increased duration or just an increased effect in general. This one here is kind of interesting. The Lum Rune. The Lum Rune has a restore one primary resource, but only requires one resource to trigger, which means that if you had 100 offering and you triggered it with 100 offering, it might just restore all of your primary resource in the process. Could be really neat. We also have restore and evade charge and gain 6% movement speed up to 30%, gain 20% maximum life. Evoke the Necromancer's Horde Decrepify, which is really cool, reducing their damage and letting you execute them. And you can also evoke the Necromancer's Abhorrent Iron Maiden, counterattacking damage from enemies and healing you when they die. So you can basically have both Necromancer curses on any character. You can also have your next non-basic skill casts spends all your primary resource to deal up to 100% increased damage, which sounds pretty interesting. Could also combine those with the Beastfall Boots for crazy damage. Reducing your active ultimate cooldowns by 4 seconds. Evoking the Rogue's Countering Concealment, gaining dodge chance, movement speed, and unstoppable, and stealth, which would probably go along really well with the new unique item, which has a bonus based on stealth. Mott is gaining a shadow from your Rogue's Dark Shroud, reducing damage taken per shadow, so you can get free Dark Shroud pips as a Druid or a Barbarian or something, or a Necromancer. The Jaw Rune gives you the ability to evade with the Sorceress's Teleport. So if you fulfill the condition, your evade becomes the Sorc's Teleport, and when you evade, you will blink further, dealing damage and becoming unstoppable. So congratulations. Everybody has on Teleport now. The Thull Rune gives you Evoke Sorcerer's Mystical Frost Nova, which is going to be really fun. This rune is one of the Spiritborn skills, and there's a couple Spiritborn skills in here. We don't exactly know what the Spiritborn skills really do yet, so, I mean, this one's kind of just up in the air, and there's a couple of these, so we get some Spiritborn skills that we could potentially use. We also have Evoke the Druid's Dancing Bolts, which is kind of fun. That's the one where they kind of float around and they do some interesting stuff. And the Evoke Barbarian's Earthquake, so you get free Earthquakes, which is really neat. You get the Desecrated Ground from the Necromancer with this one. You get the Rogue's Stun Grenades, Sorceress's Meteorites, Spiritborn Special and Swarms, and you can also summon a Spirit Wolf to attack for 8 seconds. As you can see, tons of very interesting things that you could potentially do with all these runes, and some very fun combinations that we're going to have to explore and play with. And that's not all. There's also some very odd notes in the patch notes, like this one in particular, that says all classes now have innate 15% blocked damage reduction. Shield's inherent block damage reduction has been reduced by 15%. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I'm pretty sure that my face would look something like this when I saw it, and that's, that's pretty much what my face looked like the entire time I was doing some of these patch notes. They also increased the number of character slots from 12 to 13, which is really nice. And they also made it so that dodge chance cannot reach 100%. So it's more like damage reduction now, in that each stack of damage reduction that you add has a lesser effect on the total. It used to be basically where you had 50% dodge chance and you add 50%. Well, now you're at 100. Well, now if you have 50% dodge chance and you add another 50% dodge chance, you're probably at more like 75% or something like that. And the closer that you get to 100, the more impossible it becomes. So as far as I know, you probably will not be able to ever reach 100% through any means, because of the way that they currently have it set up. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't get really high in the dodge chance, but it's not going to be as crazy. They also fixed some little bug where apparently the mythic uniques weren't dropping for low-level players, and also a bug with Andorel's Visage where it wasn't triggering if a monster was far away from the player. So that could be interesting. Here's also a picture of the goblin that we're going to have in the PTR. Trying to think if there's anything else that I left out. Of course, there's stuff I left out because there's like a million, trillion, billion things to go over with these patch notes. Let's go through here and see if I missed anything. New stash tab. I don't know if I talked about that, but they're going to be adding a new stash tab. The gem/rune inventory tab, I did talk about that one. Dungeon midpoints are replaced with monster packs. So the midpoints where you had to like go into like an area, you were stuck in there until you beat it, you couldn't progress any further. Those are gone. Leveling up shows the number of Paragon points on the actual screen now, like down at the bottom, so you can actually see how many Paragons you have when you're when you're using them. Ba 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 bum bum ba. PTR. So PTR, where we're actually going to be testing all this stuff. That comes on Wednesday. So next Wednesday, which is September the 4th, and it's going to proceed all the way till Friday. And then on Friday, we're going to get access to the Runewords, and then it's going to keep going from there. I think till like the 11th or something like that. So it's going to be going for quite a few days, and we're going to have a lot of stuff to test. They want us to test out the progression from 1 to 60, which is definitely something that we need to see. And I also am very interested to play around with the Nightmare or the Runewords. Nightmare Dungeons. So Nightmare Dungeons are going to be dropping Masterwork materials now because they moved the glyphs to the pit. And this means that you're going to be able to get your Masterworking materials from Nightmare Dungeons specifically. They also said that it wouldn't just be the boss; it would also be dropping or Masterworking materials just from like regular elites and things as you're going through the dungeon. So you're definitely going to be able to farm a lot of stuff there. They also added a party finder, which is going to be in the game. So if you're looking forward to like grouping up with other people, the party finder will be in the game, so you can have access to it. I probably won't use it because I'm going to be with the clan for the most part, but it's there for people who are interested in it. Um, and there's even like way more stuff. I mean, I told you I was going to go over some of these things. Like, for instance, they added a lot of double damage stuff to the trees. So if you look here, they've got like Hammer of Ancients double damage, Whirlwind double damage, Upheaval double damage, Double Swing chance to hit twice, Charge double damage, Kick double damage, Leap double damage, Ground Stomp double damage. I actually stopped and like looked twice when I saw that one because I actually have a build where my Kick barb is hitting for like 700 million right now. And I know they're stat squishing and everything, but 700 million is a lot of damage, and now I'm going to get double. I like it. Mighty Throw to hit, chance to hit twice. Steel Grasp deals double damage. Death Blow deals double damage. Iron Maelstrom chance to hit twice. So a lot of fun ones there. And all the classes basically got updates like this. There's a lot of new double damage bonuses like Cataclysm deal double damage, Lightning Storm double damage, Storm Strike to hit twice. There's even like Wolves chance to deal double damage. There's Corpse Explosion double damage bonuses. Just like tons and tons of double damage bonuses across the board added to the weapon tree. It seems like they're trying to have at least an option in there for everybody who's doing any kind of build when it comes to double damage. And it's understandable. For the Sorceress, they did cap out the total number of conjurations for Conjuration Mastery to 30, which is still a lot. And for Conjuration Mastery specifically, you're still going to get a lot of damage, but it's not going to scale infinitely anymore. So keep that in mind. They also did some really weird nerfs to Frenzy on the Barbarian, which I'm not really entirely sure about this. Like I said, these patch notes are ridiculously long. And if you're really interested in going over all of this, like point by point, check out my full live stream. They also did this change where they removed a lot of the unique items to a single boss. So, like, if any of the unique items had 2 bosses or 3 bosses that they were dropping from, they have not removed them from all of them. They just removed them from most of them so that they're only accessible from one boss at a time. Kind of just like, bringing down the pool of uniques that are dropping from these monsters to a much more acceptable level, which is definitely, I think, a good change across the board. And you can see these changes here. It's not going to really harm anything. It's just going to make it easier for you to obtain what you're trying to obtain without getting a bunch of other crap. As an example, just to show you one example among hundreds here, Frostburn Gauntlets drops from Beast on the Ice. Well, they're taking that away because Frostburns and Fists of Fate were consuming the same spot in that boss. So now when you go to kill this boss, there's a much better chance that you're going to get a Fist of Fate. And if you go to one of the other bosses, like for instance, I think Varshan drops Frostburns, there's a much better chance you'll get Frosties from Varshan because he won't have anything else diluting that item pool either. They also talked about Butcher's Cleaver dropping for the Necromancers from Grigore. And Moljulnik was moved from Grigore to Lord Azir. There were some interesting changes in here for interface. Like, for instance, the favorite mark item as junk has been reversed. So now when you press the spacebar on an item, it will be favorited first and then junked second, which I think is a good change overall. I'm trying to think. I know there's some other ones in here, like the ability to turn off you need more mana. This hybriding targeting thing, I'm not really sure about this one, but it looks interesting. I covered some of this stuff already. Gauntlet's going to be disabled for Season 6 because obviously things are all up in the air and nothing's like working properly. They did fix some bugs with some various things, like Leap not being able to be used as quickly as you would like. Most of these are pretty innocuous. Like, there wasn't like a whole lot of crazy stuff in here. A lot of tooltip problems. Trying to think if there was any like really crazy ones in here. There was a neat one for the Druid. Basically, the Druid's stuff wasn't hitting properly. It was the boulder. Where is it? I mean, I can just paraphrase. I don't have to find it specifically, but the boulder wasn't hitting melee targets as much, and also on top of that, it was knocking back targets too often. So they reduced the knockback on the boulder, and they also made it more likely to hit monsters that were in melee range, which was really nice. A lot of these were actually pretty good. This one right here with the aspect of the exposed flesh not triggering properly with bone skills was pretty crazy too. I realized the aspect of the exposed flesh wasn't working properly. There was also some sort of crazy bug with crackling energy where it was like reversing the percentage. So if you had like a 50% chance, it was a 50% chance. But if it was a 60, it was more like a 40. If it was 100, it was actually a 0. If it was a 1, it was actually like a 99% chance. It was weird. So apparently they fixed the reversal of that. Most of these are rather bland. I think that's pretty much it. I'm sure that there's some stuff I left out. If you want to like see the full video, watch my 6.5 hour video on like ×2. It'll only be like 3 hours and 15 minutes or something, and try and get through the entire thing. You could also skip straight to the patch notes where we go over the patch notes, and it would be a lot shorter that way too, instead of going over the campfire where they kind of drew everything out. I will see you guys on next Wednesday, when we are doing this PTR. I will be there with bells on because I really want to test out a lot of this stuff. And be sure to join me. Make sure you hit that like button and the subscribe button if you enjoy the content. And as always, keep watching.